This is Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. Independent, moderated, timely, deep, gentle, clinical, global, and community conversations about things that matter. Breathe easy, we go deep and lightly surface the big ideas.
This is an Encore presentation.
All right, so today we're going to be looking into something that I think you're going to find super interesting. It's all about this idea of protecting your gut from antibiotics. And we're going to be drawing from an article in Nature to help us unpack all of this. So you know the deal with antibiotics, right? They're amazing when we need them. Like when you have a nasty infection, they can be absolute lifesavers. But there's this kind of a downside that we're learning more and more about. And that is what happens to all the good bacteria in our gut when we take these powerful drugs. You know, that whole microbiome thing that everyone's talking about these days?
Yeah, it's a real dilemma, isn't it? On the one hand, we need antibiotics to fight off those harmful bacteria, but in doing so, they can also wipe out a lot of the good guys, the ones that are crucial for things like flora, digestion, and immunity, and who knows what else.
Yeah.
It's this delicate balance, and we're only just beginning to understand how important it really is.
So it's like a double-edged sword. We need them, but they can also cause some serious collateral damage.
Exactly. And the article talks about this researcher, Andres Cubillos-Ruiz. He was really worried when his wife had to take antibiotics while she was pregnant. He knew how important the microbiome is for a developing baby. And it really got him thinking about ways to protect those beneficial bacteria.
Yeah, I can see why he would be concerned, especially since there's more and more research showing just how important the microbiome is for long-term health.
Absolutely. And this other researcher, Gautam Dantas, he called it collateral damage. He said that even though antibiotics save lives, they can have these unintended consequences, especially when it comes to disrupting the delicate ecosystem of our gut.
So are we just stuck between a rock and a hard place? I mean, we need antibiotics, but we also need to protect our gut. Have scientists been trying to find ways to kind of like navigate this dilemma?
Oh, yeah. They've been grappling with this problem for decades. There have been some promising attempts, but they've often faced unexpected roadblocks.
Oh, really? Like what? Tell me more about these attempts and why they haven't quite hit the mark yet.
Well, one example is this thing called DAV-132. It's this specially formulated activated charcoal designed to basically mop up antibiotics in the gut before they can really wreak havoc on the good bacteria. And it actually showed some really promising results in trials. It significantly reduced the disruption of the gut microbiome.
So it worked. That's great news.
Well, sort of. It worked in terms of protecting the gut, but it hit a snag when it came to regulatory approval.
Bureaucracy strikes again. What was the problem? Side effects?
Not really side effects. The issue was with proving that it could actually prevent life-threatening infections. And that's a really high bar to clear. It requires these massive, expensive trials, and the company just couldn't meet that standard.
So even though it seemed to work, it never made it to market. That's such a shame.
Yeah, it is. And there was another one, SYN004. It's an enzyme that can break down certain types of antibiotics. And early trials showed that it was pretty good at reducing C. diff infections, which is a really nasty side effect of antibiotic use.
Okay, so another potential solution, but what happened?
Same kind of story. The path to approval was just too expensive, and the company ended up switching gears. They decided to focus on a smaller market stem cell transplant patients, where proving the benefits might be a little bit easier.
So it seems like we've had these near misses with solutions that really seem to work. It's kind of frustrating to think that these potentially beneficial treatments are getting stuck in the system. What's the current state of research, though? Are there any new approaches that might offer a solution to this antibiotic dilemma?
Well, there are a few things that are being looked at, but one that's generating a lot of buzz is this company called Flora Biosciences. And what they're doing is actually really fascinating. They're using synthetic biology.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Synthetic biology sounds pretty futuristic. What are they up to?
Basically, they're engineering a microbe that can neutralize antibiotics. But here's the really clever part. They're designing it to do this only in the gut.
Oh, so it's like a targeted approach. The antibiotic can still do its job of fighting infection in other parts of the body, but it doesn't cause all that collateral damage in the gut.
Precisely. It's like having this tiny microscopic guardian protecting those good bacteria.
Okay, I have to admit that's pretty ingenious. But hold on a second. We're talking about releasing genetically modified microbes into people's guts, right? Doesn't that sound a little bit risky?
It's a valid concern for sure, and it's something that Flora Biosciences is taking very seriously. They've actually implemented several safeguards to minimize any potential risks. One thing they did was switch from using a bacterium to a yeast, specifically Saccharomyces boulardii.
Why the switch to use? Does that make it safer somehow?
Yeah, it does. Saccharomyces boulardii is already used as a probiotic, which means it's a familiar resident of the human gut, so it's less likely to cause any unforeseen problems or disruptions.
Okay, so they're using a yeast that's already comfortable in our gut. What other safeguards have they put in place?
Well, they've also split the enzyme expression system into two parts. This makes it much harder for the engineered trait to spread to other
So
microbes.
it's like a double lock on a safe. I like that analogy.
Exactly. They're really going above and beyond to ensure safety.
It sounds like they are.
Yeah, and it's super important, especially when you're dealing with something as complex as the gut microbiome.
Absolutely. So Flori Biosciences is taking this really high-tech approach with engineered microbes. But were there any other attempts to protect the gut that maybe didn't rely on genetic engineering, like maybe a more natural route?
Yeah, actually, a lot of researchers looked into using probiotics, those live bacteria that are supposed to be good for you. The idea was to basically replenish the good bacteria that antibiotics wipe out.
Right, that makes sense. Just add more of the good guys to the mix. But I'm guessing it wasn't that simple.
Unfortunately, no. While probiotics can definitely be helpful for some things, the research hasn't really shown that they're that effective at restoring the full diversity of the gut. After you've taken antibiotics, it seems like just adding a few strains of bacteria isn't enough to rebuild that complex ecosystem.
So it's like probiotics are more of a gentle nudge than a complete reset button.
Exactly. And I think this highlights why approaches like the one Flori Bioscience is taking are so exciting. They're really tackling the problem head on rather than just trying to compensate for the damage.
That's a really great point. So we've seen some near misses with those earlier treatments. We've talked about the probiotic route. And now we have this fascinating new approach with engineered microbes. I'm really eager to hear more about what Flori Bioscience is doing and whether they can succeed where others have stumbled.
Well, their strategy is pretty interesting. They're trying to get their product classified as a medical food,
Hmm.
which could potentially help them avoid some of those really lengthy regulatory hurdles.
A medical food. That sounds a lot faster than going through the whole drug approval process. But what exactly is a medical food and why are they choosing to go that route?
Basically, a medical food is a food product that's designed to manage a specific medical condition. It's meant to be used under medical supervision, but it doesn't require the same level of testing and approval as a brand new drug.
Ah, so it's a way to potentially get their solution to people faster, while still making sure it's safe and effective. I can definitely see why they're trying that approach. But this all sounds very high tech. Are there any simpler, more accessible ways to protect our gut from antibiotics? Things that we can do ourselves.
There are actually quite a few. One area that's showing a lot of promise is the role of diet, specifically high-fiber diets. It seems like fiber might play a much bigger role than we thought, not just in, keeping things moving, but also in actually protecting our good bacteria from the harmful effects of antibiotics.
Hold on, so you're saying that eating more fiber could actually help our gut deal with antibiotics? That's way more approachable than engineered microbes. Tell me more about that. How does fiber become a superhero for our gut bacteria?
Well, it all comes down to the way that antibiotics work. A lot of them target the metabolic processes of bacteria, the way they get energy and build the molecules they need to survive.
Okay, so they're messing with the bacteria's internal workings. But where does fiber fit into all of this?
Well, this is where it gets really cool. Research is suggesting that certain types of fiber, when they're broken down by our gut bacteria, they produce compounds that can actually change the metabolic activity of those bacteria. They can basically put them into a low power mode.
So the fiber is like, hey, everyone, let's just chill out and conserve our energy until this antibiotic storm passes.
Exactly. It's almost like putting the bacteria into a state of suspended animation.
Suspended animation. So they're not dead, just kind of like hibernating.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Does this actually work, though?
There's growing evidence that it does. This guy, Peter Belenke, he's a researcher at Brown University, and he did this study in mice that showed this protective effect of fiber. The mice that ate a high-fiber diet had way less disruption to their gut microbiome after antibiotics, compared to the mice that were on a low-fiber diet.
So all those high-fiber foods that we're supposed to be eating anyway, they're actually doing double duty by protecting our gut bacteria, too.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
And it really underscores how important diet is for our overall well-being.
This is great. So we have engineered microbes and high-fiber diets as potential shields for our gut. Are there any other strategies that are being explored to protect our beneficial bacteria? I think the article mentioned something about narrow-spectrum antibiotics, right?
That's right. It's another avenue that's looking pretty promising. The idea is to develop antibiotics that are much more targeted. They would only go after the specific bad guys without causing all this widespread damage to the good bacteria.
It's like using a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer. But is that even possible? How do you create an antibiotic that's that precise?
Well, researchers are using some really amazing tools these days, including artificial intelligence, to help them identify compounds that can selectively target those harmful bacteria.
So AI is helping us fight superbugs and protect our good bacteria at the same time. That's awesome. But what about other approaches, things that aren't really antibiotics at all? I remember reading something about bacteriophages.
Yes, bacteriophages. They're basically viruses that infect and kill bacteria. But the cool thing about them is that they're incredibly specific. They often only target a single species or even a strain of bacteria.
So it's like nature's own targeted missile system against bacteria.
Exactly. And because they're so specific, they have the potential to eliminate those harmful bacteria without disrupting the balance of the good bacteria in our gut.
Are we using these bacteriophages in medical treatments already?
They've been used for quite a while, actually, mostly in Eastern Europe. But they're starting to gain more traction in the West as we face this growing problem of antibiotic resistance.
So we have high-fiber diets, engineered microbes, narrow-spectrum antibiotics, and now these incredibly specific bacteria-fighting viruses. It seems like there's a whole arsenal of options being developed to protect our gut from antibiotics.
There's one more I wanted to mention. It's called bacterial consortia.
Okay, that sounds intriguing.
Basically, it's the idea of creating these carefully selected groups of beneficial bacteria, and then you can introduce them into the gut after someone's taken antibiotics
Yeah.
to help restore a healthy balance.
So it's like giving your gut a jump start with a team of all-star bacteria.
Exactly. It's still pretty early days for this approach,
Yeah.
but it has a lot of potential.
Wow, it seems like the research is really heating up. It feels like we're on the verge of some major breakthroughs in how we protect our gut health, while still being able to fight off those nasty infections.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time to be following this field.
It really is. But before we get carried away celebrating all this incredible science, I want to bring it back down to earth for a second. What does all of this mean for the average person who might need to take antibiotics at some point?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the main takeaway here is that we need to be more aware of the impact antibiotics have on our gut. It's not just about popping a pill and forgetting about it. It's about understanding the potential risks and taking steps to minimize them.
So what can people actually do to protect their gut health? Should we all be loading up on fiber and fermented foods?
Those are definitely great places to start, but perhaps the most important thing is to have an open conversation with your doctor. Talk about the potential risks and benefits of antibiotics. Don't be afraid to ask questions and explore alternatives if they're appropriate.
Communication is key. But what about those times when antibiotics are absolutely necessary? What can we do then to kind of minimize that disruption to our gut?
Well, that's where some of these other approaches we discussed come into play. Even though we're still waiting for some of the more cutting-edge solutions to become widely available, there are things we can do right now.
Like what? Give us the actionable steps.
Diet is huge, as we've talked about. A high-fiber diet can really make a difference. So load up on those fruits, vegetables, and whole grains.
Fiber is our friend. Got it.
There's also growing evidence to support the use of probiotics and prebiotics, although we still need more research to figure out the most effective types and dosages. And as the research progresses, we might see even more personalized options become available.
This is all super helpful. It feels like we're just scratching the surface of what we know about the microbiome and how to protect it.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this field so fascinating. There's still so much to learn, but the research is moving at an incredible pace. I'm really optimistic about the future of gut health.
Me too. And I'm sure our listeners are feeling a lot more informed and empowered to take control of their own gut health. But before we move on to part 2 of our deep dive, I have one more question I can't resist asking. Of all the research we've discussed, what has you the most excited about the future? What's the one thing you're just dying to see unfold in the next few years?
That's a tough one. But if I had to choose, I think I'm most excited about the potential of personalized medicine for gut health. Imagine a future where we can analyze someone's microbiome, figure out exactly what they need, and then create a totally customized plan to optimize their gut health, whether it's through diet probiotics or even engineered microbes.
Wow, that would be incredible.
It would. And I think we're getting closer to that reality every day. The research is moving so quickly. It's a really exciting time to be studying the microbiome.
I couldn't agree more. Before we move on to part 2 of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a thought. We've talked a lot about protecting the good bacteria in our gut from antibiotics. But what happens when things go wrong? What if our gut microbiome gets really messed up? Even with all these protective measures in place, is there any hope of recovery? We'll be exploring that question and more in part 2 of our deep dive into gut health.
Thank you for being curious and subscribing, following, liking, rating, and reviewing our podcast episodes. Your support really helps build a vibrant Heliox community. Back to Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. Welcome back to our deep dive into gut health. In part 1, we talked about all those promising approaches for protecting our gut bacteria from antibiotics. But even with those advancements, it's important to understand what happens when the gut microbiome really takes a hit, when those good bacteria are truly decimated.
Yeah, you're right. That's a crucial question. We touched on it briefly before the break, and I'm really curious to learn more. So can you kind of paint a picture for us? What does a severely disrupted gut actually look like?
Imagine a lush, diverse rainforest that's suddenly been ravaged by a wildfire. It's a pretty good analogy for what happens to your gut microbiome when it gets severely disrupted. That once thriving ecosystem just collapses. Beneficial bacterial species dwindle, and opportunistic pathogens, the troublemakers, they start to take over. It's like this delicate balance just tipping into chaos.
That sounds pretty alarming. What kind of problems can come up from that kind of imbalance?
Well, the effects can be really far-reaching, impacting not just your gut, but your overall health. It can lead to all sorts of digestive issues like bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation. Your immune system can weaken, making you more susceptible to infections.
Yeah.
And there's even growing evidence linking a disrupted gut microbiome to more serious conditions, like inflammatory bowel disease, autoimmune disorders, and even mental health issues like anxiety and depression.
Wow, it really seems like the gut microbiome is connected to just about everything. So if someone's gut has taken a serious hit, is there any hope of recovery? Can that rainforest grow back?
Well, the good news is that the gut microbiome is remarkably resilient. Even after a major disruption, it has this incredible ability to regenerate, to try to get back to a state of equilibrium. But it often needs a little help, and that's where things like fecal microbiota transplantation, or FMT, come into play.
FMT. Yeah, I've heard of that, but I have to admit it sounds a bit, well, unconventional.
It definitely does. But behind that unusual nature of the treatment lies a surprisingly simple and effective concept. It involves taking fecal matter from a healthy donor and transplanting it into the gut of someone with a severely disrupted microbiome. It's kind of like reseeding a damaged lawn with a healthy patch of sod.
Oh, okay. So you're introducing a diverse community of healthy bacteria to help kickstart the recovery process.
Exactly. And while it might sound a little off-putting, FMT has been incredibly successful in treating recurrent C. diff infections, which are notoriously difficult to get rid of with traditional antibiotics. It's a real game changer for people who've been suffering from these debilitating infections.
That's amazing. So even in those really tough situations where the gut microbiome is really struggling, there's still hope for recovery. But besides FMT, are there any other options for those extreme cases?
Yeah, researchers are exploring a variety of approaches. And one that I find particularly fascinating is the development of these engineered consortia. Think of them as carefully crafted teams of beneficial bacteria, each member chosen for its specific superpowers, like the ability to outcompete those harmful pathogens, or produce essential metabolites that are missing in a disrupted gut.
So it's like assembling a league of extraordinary microbes to restore balance to the gut.
Exactly. It's a highly targeted and personalized approach. And as we learn more about the gut microbiome, we can expect these engineered consortia to become even more sophisticated and effective.
This is all incredibly hopeful, but I think it also highlights the importance of prevention, right? Like if we can take steps to protect our gut health in the first place, we might be able to avoid these more extreme interventions altogether.
Absolutely. Prevention is always better than cure. And as we talked about in part 1, there's so many things we can do to support our gut microbiome, from eating a fiber-rich diet to being more mindful of antibiotic use.
Right. And speaking of fiber, earlier we were talking about how it could potentially put those gut microbes into a state of suspended animation to protect them from antibiotics. That concept really piqued my curiosity. Can you delve a little deeper into how that actually works?
Of course, it's a really fascinating area of research. And as we mentioned, Peter Belenky and his team at Brown University, they're doing some groundbreaking work in this field. To understand how fiber protects those bacteria, we need to go back to how antibiotics work. A lot of antibiotics target those metabolic processes of bacteria, essentially how they get energy and build the molecules they need to survive.
Right, so the antibiotics are disrupting the bacteria's internal machinery.
Exactly. And here's where fiber comes in. When certain types of fiber are broken down by those gut bacteria, they produce compounds that can actually change the metabolic activity of the bacteria. They basically tell the bacteria to slow down the metabolism and enter this low-power mode.
So the fiber is kind of like a signal that says, hey, everyone, conserve your energy. We're in survival mode.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And this low-power mode, this suspended animation, it makes the bacteria less susceptible to the effects of the antibiotics. It's like a fascinating defense mechanism that scientists are just beginning to understand.
It's amazing to think that something as simple as eating more fiber could offer such powerful protection for our gut bacteria. You mentioned that Belenki's team actually showed this to be true in studies, right?
Yes, they did a study in mice, and it provided some really compelling evidence for this protective effect of fiber. They found that mice that were fed a high-fiber diet had significantly less disruption to their gut microbiome after they were given antibiotics compared to mice that were on a low-fiber diet. So this research is still in its early stages, but it's definitely opening up exciting new possibilities for how we can use diet to protect our gut health.
This is really making me rethink the importance of fiber. It's clearly much more than just something that keeps us regular, but let's not forget about those other approaches that we were discussing, like those narrow-spectrum antibiotics and the bacteriophages. It seems like those could be game changers too.
Absolutely. Each of these approaches has its own unique advantages and challenges. Those narrow-spectrum antibiotics offer the precision of a surgical strike, while those bacteriophages bring the power of nature's own bacteria-fighting arsenal. And then there are those bacterial consortia, those carefully curated teams of beneficial bacteria, ready to restore balance to the gut.
It's like having a whole toolbox of options to choose from depending on the situation.
Precisely. And as research continues, we can expect this toolbox to become even more sophisticated and personalized. Imagine a future where we can analyze an individual's microbiome, identify their specific needs, and then prescribe a custom-tailored solution to protect their gut health.
Now, that's what I call personalized medicine. But until we reach that futuristic utopia, what can we as individuals do to be proactive about our gut health? We've talked about diet, but are there other everyday habits that we can adopt to support those trillions of little helpers in our gut?
Definitely. Beyond diet, one of the most important things you can do is manage your stress. Chronic stress can really wreak havoc on your gut health. So finding healthy ways to manage stress, whether it's through exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, or just engaging in activities that you enjoy, can make a big difference.
So taking care of our gut is really about taking care of ourselves holistically, mind, body, and those trillions of little microbes that call our gut home.
Exactly. It's all interconnected.
Now I want to shift gears for a moment. We've been talking about all these amazing solutions that are in development, but the article I shared also mentioned that some of these companies are facing challenges, especially when it comes to regulations. Why is that? It seems like if we have solutions that could help people, we should be able to get them out there as quickly as possible.
I get it. I understand the frustration. But the regulatory landscape for these types of products is really complex, and for good reason. Take, for example, the requirement to prove that a product can prevent life-threatening infections. That's a really high bar to clear.
Yeah.
And it often requires these large-scale and very expensive clinical trials. And not all companies have the resources to do that.
Yeah, I can see how proving that level of efficacy would be incredibly challenging, especially when you're dealing with something as complex as the gut microbiome.
Exactly. And while it's obviously crucial to ensure the safety and effectiveness of any new treatment, it can be frustrating to think that potentially beneficial solutions might get delayed or even shelved because of these regulatory hurdles.
I agree. It's this delicate balance between ensuring safety and getting promising treatments to the people who need them. But are there any ways to kind of streamline this process without compromising on safety?
Some companies like Slory Biosciences are exploring alternative pathways to market. As we mentioned earlier, they're aiming for that medical food classification for their product, which could potentially speed things up. It'll be interesting to see how these strategies play out and if they can pave the way for other innovative gut health solutions to reach consumers more quickly.
Fingers crossed. It's really exciting to think about a future where we have this whole arsenal of tools to protect and restore our gut health.
It is. And in the meantime, there's so much we can do on our own to support those trillions of tiny allies living inside of us. Knowledge is power. And by understanding this complex world of the gut microbiome, we can make more informed choices about our health and well-being.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up the second part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with another thought-provoking question. We've talked about protecting the good bacteria and restoring a damaged microbiome. But there's one more aspect of gut health that I think deserves our attention, the gut-brain connection. In part 3 of our deep dive, we're going to explore this fascinating link and really delve into how our gut health can impact everything from our mood to our cognitive functions. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into all things gut health. We've covered a lot of ground, right from the delicate balance of the microbiome to the incredible resilience of all those trillions of tiny helpers living inside of us. But there's just one more fascinating aspect of this microscopic world that I think we need to talk about, and that's the gut-brain connection. I know it might sound a bit strange at first, but the more we learn about this connection, the more we realize how deeply our gut health impacts our overall well-being, including our mental and emotional state.
It's true. It really is.
Yeah.
The gut-brain connection is honestly one of the most exciting areas of research right now. For centuries, we've kind of had this sense that there's a link between our gut and our brain, right? Think of those gut feelings we get or the butterflies in our stomach when we're nervous. But science is finally starting to uncover those mechanisms,
Yeah.
showing us that the communication between the gut and the brain is way more complex and influential than we ever imagined.
Okay, I'm hooked. Walk me through this. How does this communication actually happen? Is there like a tiny phone line running between our gut and our brain?
Not quite a phone line, but there are multiple channels of communication going on. One of the key players is this thing called the vagus nerve. It's this long nerve that acts like a superhighway of information, connecting our gut directly to our brain. It carries signals back and forth, relaying messages about things like hunger, fullness, and even stress levels.
So our gut is constantly sending updates to our brain about what's going on down there. But it's not just the vagus nerve, right? You mentioned something about the microbiome playing a role too.
Absolutely. And this is where things get really interesting. Those trillions of bacteria in our gut, they're not just passive bystanders. They're actually producing all sorts of compounds that can influence our brain chemistry and function. Things like neurotransmitters, short-chain fatty acids, even hormones, can be produced by gut bacteria and then travel to the brain, impacting everything from our mood and cognitive abilities to our sleep patterns and even our pain perception.
Hold on, so you're telling me that these tiny microbes are basically messing with our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors?
In a way, yes. And the more we learn about these microbial messengers, the more we realize how important it is to maintain a healthy and balanced gut microbiome. Because when things get out of whack in the gut, it can really have these ripple effects throughout the body, including our brain.
This is starting to make so much sense now. It explains why I always feel so blah and mentally foggy after a round of antibiotics.
It's a great observation, and it really highlights why it's so important to be mindful of the impact that antibiotics can have on our gut. We talked earlier about strategies to protect those good bacteria during antibiotic treatment. And those strategies become even more crucial when we consider the potential consequences for brain health.
Right, because if our gut bacteria are sending messages to our brain, what kind of messages are they sending when things are good, when our gut is healthy and thriving?
Well, when you have this balanced and diverse gut microbiome, the good bacteria are hard at work producing all these beneficial compounds. That can actually improve brain function. For example, some gut bacteria produce GABA, which has calming and relaxing effects on the brain. Others produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which have been shown to boost cognitive function and protect against neurodegenerative diseases.
So a happy gut equals a happy brain.
Pretty much. It emphasizes how important it is to take care of our gut health, not just for our physical well-being, but for our mental and emotional well-being too.
This has been eye-opening, honestly. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of the connection between our gut and our brain. But before we wrap up, what can our listeners do to support a healthy gut-brain connection? Any tips or tricks they can put into action?
Absolutely. A lot of the things we've already talked about for a healthy gut will benefit your brain too. Diet is a big one. That high-fiber diet full of fruits, veggies, and whole grains, it provides the fuel your good bacteria need to thrive. And those thriving bacteria, in turn, they produce those compounds that support brain health. So eat the rainbow.
Fiber is our friend, we get it. But anything else besides diet?
Stress management is huge. Chronic stress can really mess with the balance of your gut microbiome, leading to inflammation and an imbalance in those microbial messengers that are talking to your brain. So find healthy ways to manage that stress, whether it's exercise, meditation, time in nature, or just doing activities that you enjoy.
So we need to nourish our gut with a healthy diet and manage our stress levels. Anything else?
Well, there's also some evidence that certain probiotics can actually have positive effects on brain health. So adding some probiotic-rich foods to your diet, or maybe even a good probiotic supplement, could be worth considering. But as always, it's best to chat with your doctor or a registered dietitian to figure out what's right for you.
This has been an incredible journey into the world of gut health and the gut-brain connection. I feel like we've only scratched the surface, but I think we've given our listeners some great insights and actionable steps they can take to improve their gut health and their brain health.
It's been awesome exploring this with you. I hope everyone listening feels empowered to take control of their gut health and appreciate the power of all those trillions of little helpers living inside of them.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the gut microbiome. Remember, every bite you take, every thought you have, every moment of stress or relaxation, it all influences this incredible ecosystem within you. So be mindful, nourish your gut, and embrace that amazing connection between your gut and your brain. Until next time, stay curious.
Thanks for listening today. 4 recurring narratives underlie every episode: boundary dissolution, adaptive complexity, embodied knowledge, and quantum-like uncertainty. These aren't just philosophical musings, but frameworks for understanding our modern world. We hope you continue exploring our other podcasts, responding to the content, and checking out our related articles at helioxpodcast.substack.com.